to the next part of our agenda, and actually forgot to mention that we have a pretty green ELPCO meeting today. It's very focused on gardening and water conservation and fruit trees and everything that you're doing outside. Today was a beautiful day. Hopefully you got to spend some time out there tending your garden or thinking about your garden, but we're here to help today to get that started. We've got 3 presentations on tap about gardening, about fruit trees, and about rain barrels and water conservation. And we'll start off with Becca Huber and William Huff from Gilmer Park introducing our first experts from Wasatch Community Gardens. Take it away, Becca and William.
Thanks so much. We have a special shout out to Van and Mary Beth for being here. Thank you so much. We have been involved kind of with Wasatch Community Gardens as community gardeners for the past 5 years. And we've gotten to know Van through that process. He is the Green City Growers Program Manager. And we've also had the pleasure of getting to know Mary Beth as well. She's the Community Education Program Director. And we're just so thankful for them to come tonight and share some secrets as well as some information about Wasatch Community Gardens.
Yeah, we've just learned so much over the years, and not just from the classes, but also from fellow gardeners at the community plots. It's just a great organization.
We love it.
Yeah.
We can't say enough good about Wasatch Community Gardens. We love it. Okay. Well, I will let Van and Mary Beth take it away.
Cool. Thank you so much, Becca. I'll pay you later. You guys have, Becca and Will have been organizers at the Liberty Wells Garden that we organized in 2016. So we worked together quite a bit, and really grateful to be with you guys tonight and to kind of spread the word about what's going on with community gardens, and then kind of share some gardening information. So the Green City Growers Program is a partnership with Salt Lake City. It was established in 2014, and they kind of decided there was a bunch of different underutilized spots in the city that could be transformed into community gardens and kind of be activated. And so there's 7 gardens currently in the program, Liberty Wells being one of those. We have in Rose Park, Fair Park, up in the avenues by Popperton Park. Our last one that we did that we built last year was Richmond Park on 6th South. And so we're looking at this site that's just north of the Liberty Wells Garden on 17th South, is just south of 13th South on 7th East, along that big strip of grass that goes along 7th East. And the community reached out to us. It actually wasn't a site that was pre-approved, but since we've been working with parks, they've kind of just left the request open to the community. If there's a site that's Salt Lake City owned and the community thinks it might make a good garden, then they'll entertain the idea. So that's kind of what happened a couple of years ago. Brett, one of the community members, reached out to me, and we just started talking. So right now we've gotten approval to potentially put a garden on this site. I can kind of share a quick aerial, and I don't do a whole lot of screen sharing, but I'm going to try it. Here we go. Okay, so here's 7th East and Harrison. This is the site that we're kind of looking at. Right across the street over here is that baseball field. Right up here is the church, and then just beyond there is Liberty Park. And we actually have potential access to this site, even the north part of this site. And so right now we're in this outreach phase, trying to figure out community support, how many people are interested in plots in this space, and how many people are interested in helping with it, as well as just supporting it. And so we have an online petition going. I think I can share it in the, would it be helpful to share it in the chat? Is that maybe the best thing?
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that right when I'm done, actually. So basically you can just kind of go in and put your name and if you're interested in helping or if you're interested in getting a plot. And, you know, these gardens are a partnership with the community, the city, and Wasatch Community Gardens. And it can, you know, it can't really happen otherwise because no one can really buy land in Salt Lake City right now, especially a small nonprofit. So Salt Lake City really, you know, makes that happen for us. But the gardens function because of the community and that participation in maintaining the stuff day to day. So figuring out how to get the word out to folks if they're interested in participating is really important to us right now. We're hoping to get, you know, 100+ folks before the mid-July that are interested in getting a plot there. So I'll share that link. And I think that's about it for me. I thought maybe if there's any questions about that garden or the program, I can mention that, or I can answer questions. But otherwise, I think I'll. People like the gardening tips a little more than me. Organizing garden.
Well, we shall see about that.
Yeah. But yeah, any questions before we move on to Mary Beth? Cool. Thanks for having us, y'all.
Okay, great. Thanks, Van. Jason, should I ask you to screen share in case I flub it up?
Whatever you would like. Do you want me to go ahead with it, or do you want to give it a shot?
I think I'm just going to take you up on your offer and have you do that.
Sounds good.
It worked for Detective Meisner, so I think it'll, or someone was manipulating the slides somehow magically. Okay, here we go. Well, thank you guys for inviting us to join your meeting tonight. This is, I think I have about 12 minutes left to give you some 10 or 12 minutes or so to give you some tips and ideas, basically the do's and don'ts of gardening in Salt Lake City. And this is an emphasis on organic vegetable gardening. That's the focus of Wasatch Community Gardens, is to empower people to grow and eat healthy, organic, local food. So we're not talking about, you know, pine trees and junipers and grapes and fruit. I think we have another presenter tonight whose expertise is in that area. This is about vegetables, not only vegetables that smile, but we can go to the next slide. So thank you for inviting me and Van. Film last year at one of Van's gardens, the Gateway Community Garden. Oops, we're moving ahead a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Getting you back. Is this where you want
to be
right now? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say next. Thanks. So we partnered last year with PBS Utah, their Modern Gardener group, and put together some educational videos. So at the end of my little talk presentation tonight, I'll list some resources for you. And one of them is our YouTube channel, the Wasatch Community Gardens YouTube channel, that has all sorts of educational videos on it. And then this is just a little clip of the two of us last year putting together one of these educational videos at one of Van's amazing gardens, the Gateway Community Garden in the Gateway area. Next, please. So this is my attempt to give you my best tips in 10 minutes. I'll introduce myself here in just a second, but just to give you an overview, we're going to quickly go through some general organic vegetable gardening do's and don'ts. So I have about 5 or 6 of my top do's and 5 or 6 of my top don'ts. And then I have 2 extra hot tips for tomatoes that we'll talk about. And then I want to make sure that you have additional information available to you. So you can always visit the Wasatch Community Gardens website at wasatchgardens.org, and you can learn more about the community garden program. You can also click on community education and find some workshops and webinars that are available, as well as other resources. I also want to let everybody know that I do offer free garden coaching sessions online about every other week. And at the link above, wasatchgardens.org/workshops, there's a list of dates on which we offer or will continue to offer these Facebook Live garden coaching sessions. They last 45 to 60 minutes, and they're just about every other week. So it's very, very timely advice taking you through the whole season. And it's obviously much more comprehensive than what I can offer you tonight. Next, please. So here I am. I'm a tomato fanatic, as Will and Becca can probably attest. And this photo on the right was just taken yesterday inside our brand new teaching tunnel at the Wasatch Community Gardens campus. So over 30 years ago, we started with a garden at the corner of 800 South and 600 East, and it's always been known as the Grateful Tomato Garden. And in the last couple of years, we were able to purchase properties just immediately east of the Grateful Tomato Garden. And by the end of the summer, our administrative offices and garden staff offices will be housed in that new section of the Wasatch Community Gardens campus. Part of the campus is this really cool teaching tunnel. It's a high tunnel structure. And we're using that currently to film some of these Facebook Live events. So there I am holding gigantic rhubarb and a very sad cucurbit or squash plant, giving instruction just yesterday. And all of these videos that we have held, even going back to last March at the very beginning of the pandemic, or maybe early April, was when we started interacting with our gardening community via Facebook Live. They're all available to view in the videos section of the Wasatch Community Gardens Facebook page. So there you go. I am the community education director. I've been with Wasatch Community Gardens for nearly 6 years, about 5.5 years. And prior to that, I was a volunteer for about 5 years. So I've been around the organization for quite a while. Next, please. So here are some general organic vegetable gardening do's and don'ts. Next. Okay, first of all, the best piece of advice that I can give any gardener, new or experienced gardener, is to be patient with yourself and your garden. A lot of us get really itchy fingers, and whether it's the fact that we want to plant yesterday, we want to plant everything right away, might not be the best idea. We might want to take on too much. You might get frustrated with yourself because, there are things that you don't know. And gardening, learning how to garden and grow food is really a lifelong process. I've been an organic vegetable gardener at home now for about 26 years, and 10 of those at Wasatch Community Gardens. I'm a Salt Lake County master gardener, and I still learn new things all the time. So you need to be patient with yourself. You also need to know cool versus warm season crops and when to plant what. The classic example is that I get students every year saying, "Oh, I planted my peas and beans today," and I just cry a little bit inside because that's not the best strategy. Peas are a cool season crop and beans are a warm season crop. And so they need to be planted months apart from one another. Your peas going in the spring, maybe again in late summer for fall harvest, and your beans are a warm season crop that get planted right around now. So knowing what crop you're growing and when to plant it, and a little bit about how that plant grows, when to harvest it, how much space it needs in the garden, what its water and fertilizer needs are so important to your success. I always see folks too trying to grow vegetables in the shade, and our vegetables really need full sun. They need a minimum of 6 hours a day. And many of our warm season crops require at least 8 hours a day of sun. So, choosing your spot, if you're not growing in a community garden where your space is decided for you and you have a property, whether it's, a balcony or a small yard or a larger yard, it's really important to select the best site in your yard, and that is in full sun. Also, building healthy soil. This is the foundation of organic vegetable gardening, is soil building, soil regeneration, caring for the soil, understanding the microbial activity in the soil. We obviously don't have time to go into all of that tonight. In a typical non-COVID year, we offer a series. So we hope to begin all of those in-person workshops in our teaching gardens at Wasatch Community Gardens campus in 2022. So stay tuned on our website for that. Fertilize appropriately. If you're growing in ground, in native earth, native Utah soil, we have very specific characteristics in our soil, particularly very high phosphorus and potassium levels, sometimes high salinity levels. We typically grow in clay soil. So knowing what you're facing will help you understand not only how to build your healthy soil, but what kind of fertilizer to use. So if you are growing in the ground, for example, it's really important to add nitrogen every year. And the most affordable and easily accessible product that we can use is called blood meal. It's a product that only contains nitrogen, no phosphorus and no potassium. So it's a great amendment or fertilizer to add for just about every vegetable. And one of the key problems that I find with so many gardeners that struggle every year with underperforming plants is that they haven't fertilized. So that is top, to do correctly, number 5. And water efficiently. This year, we're in an extreme drought or an exceptional drought in some parts of our state. So, the more you can squirrel away in your garden bank for installing drip irrigation in your garden, the better, right? I mean, because that's the most efficient way to apply water to our gardens. And if any folks in your particular community do decide to move forward with this Harrison community garden, there will be drip irrigation there. We offer drip irrigation in all of the Wasatch community gardens. So watering efficiently is going to be so important this year. And on these Facebook Lives weekly, I will be offering tips for how to do that. And then rely on available resources when you have questions. Don't feel like you're out there flapping in the breeze on your own, trying to figure out how to do this. So we can go to the next slide. So don't. These are the don'ts. This photo right here is what happens if you don't do the things that we're suggesting that you do. So don't ignore your garden. There's a saying that I like to share with people that says the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow, which means get out there and spend time in your garden. You will notice things that may start to be going wrong much sooner, so you can intervene much more quickly before something becomes, a full-blown train wreck like in this photo. Let's quickly go to the next slide that has a much nicer photo to accompany this list of don'ts. So don't feel like you're alone. Obviously, Wasatch Community Gardens, our middle name is community. So, we can be here for you. Other gardeners can be there for you. The Facebook community can be there for you. So don't feel like you're out there on your own doing this. And a really important don't right now is to not plant your summer crops too early. So specifically, we're talking about things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, basil, your squash, melons, and cucumbers. I have planted my walls of water, but I'm sorry, my tomatoes, but they're all inside walls of water right now. And I have not yet planted my peppers. So again, it's that itchy finger syndrome, right? It's like, ooh, we had our first nice day. I've got to get out there and plant my tomatoes. But we're just now getting to the point where the conditions outside are really favorable for those crops. This is so important, you guys. Number 4, don't spray or treat anything with any product unless you have an accurate diagnosis and a really, really clear picture of what it is that's wrong. You know, I think in our culture, we see something that's wrong, or like maybe we have an acre of pain, and the first thing we want to do is like take something to make it go away, like that magic bullet, that quick fix. But that does not work well in gardening, especially not in organic gardening, because a lot of these products that you can purchase to like spray on something to kill something that might not even be what's causing your problem will be broad spectrum and can really negatively impact all of our beneficial insects and our pollinators and butterflies and things. So it's really important to, you know, to try to understand that lots of things can cause challenges in our gardens, and a lot of them have to do with environmental conditions and not pests or diseases. So resisting that temptation to like grab a bottle of, you know, X product and spray it on your plant is really, really important. And then just lastly, don't take on too much. You know, I see a lot of new gardeners saying, I'm going to rip out my whole lawn and I'm going to put the whole thing into a garden. But you know, most of us actually have other things to do in our lives, like jobs or families or other activities we enjoy. So I would just encourage you, if you're new or newer, to just, you know, start small. You can always grow more later and build your soil over time. So those are my top do's and don'ts. Let's go to the next slide, please. And we're now going to talk about the 2 hot tips for tomatoes, but I do want to ask Jason, for whatever reason, I can't see anybody. Maybe I need to go to speaker view. Oh, I'm on speaker view, but I can't see anybody. How are we doing time wise? Do I have just a few more minutes?
Yeah, just a couple more minutes would be great. I think tomato tips would be very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then we'll just wrap up with the resources slide. Perfect. So next slide, please. Okay, so my top tip number 1 is help them thrive, wait for 55. So, you know, just like repeat that mantra in your brain so that every May you remember that. You know, the folklore is plant your tomatoes on Mother's Day. Well, our climate is getting a little more unpredictable. So Mother's Day doesn't always work for us anymore. You know, we're starting to lean more toward Memorial Day. Not that we don't have warm days early, but we have cold days late. And so help them thrive, wait for 55. The rest of this screen we don't need to go through, but it's just really important that you wait until those nighttime temperatures are 55 degrees or higher every night in the 7-day forecast before you decide to put your tomatoes, peppers, basil in the ground. It's all very interesting and fascinating, and I can geek out on it for hours, but they actually release a hormone, a stress hormone in response to these stressful low temperatures. And it can cause permanent stunting. It can cause all sorts of fruit malformation during the season. So, you know, blossom end rot and cat facing and other problems with your fruit. So it really will behoove you and your plants if you can wait until that 7 to 10 day forecast is favorable for your tomatoes. Next slide. Side note, wait for the 7-day forecast to be in the 60s, a 60 and above for peppers and basil. Tomatoes can do 55, but your peppers and basil really want 50. And every year I talk to so many folks who say, oh, I just can't grow peppers. You know, my pepper plant's the same size in August that it was in May. And that's because they put them out and the temperatures were too cold. And the plant was like, oh my gosh, I'm a tropical plant. And she's like thrown me out and it's like 39 degrees. And they get stunted. So wait for 55 and help them thrive, or 60 if you're peppers and basil. Next slide. The other tip, another top tip, is to pot up or put your plant that's in a small pot into a bigger pot and fertilize it if that 7-day forecast, you buy your plant and then you look at the 7-day forecast and it's like 46, 44, 43, 51 degrees. Those are not the favorable conditions, but it's also not great for the plant to like sit for weeks or even a week in that tiny little pot. And in this photo that we literally just took yesterday, you can see both of these plants were sown at the same time from seed, were treated the exact same way, and were purchased on May 8th. And the one in my right hand to the left on the photo stayed in its tiny little pot, unfertilized since May 8th, so almost 3 weeks. The one on the right was the lucky plant, and we potted that up and fertilized it, and look at the difference. So which one do you think is going to perform better for you in your garden? The one on the right side of the photo. So and again, we offer classes and all kinds of tips in our Facebook Live that will help you learn how to pot them up and what fertilizer to use. Next slide, please. So to learn more about growing great tomatoes and make your tomato plants produce the most fruit that they possibly can, we have an entire curriculum online called Growing Great Tomatoes. These are online webinars. They were presented live earlier this season, but they are available for on-demand viewing. So you can go to wasatchgardens.org and find the workshop section under community education, and you can register and take these webinars and view them at any time you choose at home. So I think that's a really great option. And also, like I've been talking about, our bi-weekly Facebook Lives. Next slide. And this is, I think, our last slide, which is the resources that are available in the community to you. So those garden coaching sessions. We also have a brand new set of 4 videos, one of which is currently posted to our website in the resources section. That's the one on how to grow potatoes. We've also done a how to grow onions, and 2, they're about 10 minutes long and they're free to watch, 2 tomato planting videos with much more specifics than we've even gone into tonight. And then the workshop link where you can access our webinars this year and our in-person, I hope, workshops next year. We do have scholarships available, and the scholarship application is right there on the registration form online. And also, we have Salt Lake County Extension from Utah State University, all the master gardeners and horticulturists that provide services for free. So if you have a garden question, you can email mastergardener@usu.edu with really clear photos and description of what's going on in your garden, and they can also offer help. And I think that is maybe my last slide.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thanks for letting me take so much time.
Hey, Mary Beth, I wanted to mention really quick that so if you join a community garden, Mary Beth offers her workshops at a fraction of the cost. Normally they're like $20. 20
to 25.
Yeah,
but they're like $5.
$5 for community gardeners. So if that's of interest to you, want to get involved in the community, and then also, be able to learn a lot, it's a great way to kind of start things out.
Thanks, Van. Yeah, that's a great point.
Thanks, y'all.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mary Beth. That was an excellent presentation. I just wanted to ask one quick question. You mentioned blood meal is the nutrient that helps fertilize soil here in Utah specifically. Is that exactly how it sounds like it's spelled, blood meal, like we're vampires? Is there any different varieties we would want to get for Utah?
Blood meal is actually a product. It is, maybe a little bit unsavory, I guess, to some folks, but it is a product of the slaughterhouse industry. So it's literally like dried blood, usually bovine, but sometimes it is from pigs. So there are members of the community that just doesn't work for, vegans or other folks that just don't want to deal with that. So there are other sources of nitrogen that you can use, like cottonseed meal, alfalfa meal. And I'm always happy if someone wants to email me, marybeth@wasatchgardens.org. I'm very happy to walk you through the process of figuring out how much of those different products to use. The situation with those other products like soybean meal, alfalfa meal, cottonseed meal is that they do contain phosphorus and potassium, which we try to avoid adding to our native Utah soils. But there are some other strategies that you can use as well. So that's a great question.
Thank you for that. I learned a lot more than I expected, and I appreciate Becca and Will holding up a copy of what it looks like, the blood meal. So yeah, I think I need it for my garden, especially in raised beds, right? Like that would be important if you're putting raised beds down.
Well, actually, that's another great question. If you're using raised beds and they are filled with a soilless potting mix, so that combination of like peat moss, perlite, and compost, then you do need to add not only nitrogen, but also phosphorus and potassium. And in that case, I actually recommend something like a bag of fertilizer that would have like a 5-5-5 on it. Those three numbers represent N, P, and K. So you would use sort of an all-purpose fertilizer that contains all of the nutrients that just aren't contained in peat moss, perlite, and enough concentration in compost. If you have native soil in your raised beds, then I would only add nitrogen, some form of nitrogen, blood meal being one of those sources. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, it's a wonder I've managed to grow anything in Utah.
Well, come take some webinars. Join us on Facebook Live.
And any questions for Mary Beth? A lot of information, but you are an incredible resource, so I want to make sure that folks are able to ask. And I'm also wondering if someone could put the tomato videos link that you have into our chat. I think people will want to follow up on that. You have so many resources, it's hard to figure out exactly where that is. But other questions for Mary Beth?
I see Judy. Hi, Judy.
Judy Short, our land use advisor at ELPCO, also a very committed gardener.
Judy attended a tomato tasting that we had at Wasatch Community Gardens Grateful Tomato Garden a couple of years ago, and it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get together again and taste a bunch of tomatoes in September.
Great. Becca and Will, were there any other follow-ups you wanted to add in?
No, thank you so much, Mary Beth and Van, for being here. And if you have any questions about the Harrison proposed garden, we'd love to talk to you more about it. I'm helping organize that one too. And I think we've already seen a lot of support. I know Brett was telling me he had about 25 signatures already. And I know there's people signing the online one. So yeah, we'd love any support or any interested gardeners.
Fantastic. All right. Especially if you don't have the right room or the right sun quotient in your yard, this is a great option for a new community garden coming in. I next want to turn it over to Jen Bloom, who is our 9th and 9th Festival Director, who is going to introduce our next speaker. We're moving up the food chain, maybe, I don't know, we're just getting taller. We're going to talk about fruit trees. So take it away, Jen.
I am so excited to welcome the Green Urban Lunchbox to the ELPCO community meeting. My first encounter with the Green Urban Lunchbox was when they had a giant bus that they had, a big school bus that they had converted into a mobile garden. I wandered onto that and I thought, this is really cool. About 6 years later, they saved me from my fruit trees. We have 2 old apple trees, lots of grapes. It was overwhelming. I think they came, a lovely team of volunteers through Fruit Share came and harvested, I'm not kidding, I think 30 crates. It was incredible. And like basically saved us from a lot of fruit that would have rotted. I can't eat that many apples. And now I'm on the board. So I've been on the board for a couple of years. So the Green Urban Lunchbox, their mission is to empower people to connect to food in their community by revitalizing urban spaces and building a resilient food culture. So they do this through the growing and gathering of food, which is through the fruit share program that Hannah's going to talk about, the Back Farms program, which connects seniors, gardens, and volunteers together, which is a lovely program, and the Small Farm Initiative, which does farmer training for sustainable farming in urban environments. They also distribute food, and that's done through community supported agriculture, so your produce, weekly produce share. And they also do free farm stands for senior communities. Is that right, specifically, Hannah? They also offer, well, I'll let her talk about this, but they also offer fruit tree care, which I desperately need to take advantage of. So we'll chat later. Hannah is the Fruit Share Outreach and Communications Vista for Green Urban Lunchbox. And I just read that you grew up on a small farm in Ohio. So we'll chat later about that.
Yes.
I did not, but my mom did.
Well, incredible.
So take it away, Hannah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jen. Okay, I am also going to attempt to share my screen. All right. Can everybody see the presentation and hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much. As Jen mentioned, my name is Hannah, and I'm the Fruit Share Outreach Coordinator at the Green Urban Lunchbox. And like she said, our mission is just to empower people to connect to their local food system by revitalizing urban spaces and just providing people with fresh and healthy food. And fruit trees can be a wonderful addition to your home that provide years of fruitful reward, whether you're looking to plant a tree or you've just inherited one and have no idea what to do with it. It's important to understand that properly growing a fruit tree is a long-term investment. In Salt Lake Valley alone, thousands of fruit trees grow in homeowners' backyards, and they collectively produce over just hundreds and thousands of pounds of fresh fruit each year, just to give you guys a little bit of perspective. So that's kind of where our Fruit Share program comes in. And, you know, what is Fruit Share? It is a gleaning program that partners with fruit tree homeowners and community volunteers to rescue and distribute fruit. We do this by leading small groups of volunteers and harvest staff to harvest this fruit from the yards. And we organize about 20 to 25 harvests per week, especially during the peak season. And then distribution, the fresh fruit. This is the best part. The fresh fruit is split up between the homeowners, the volunteers, and the Green Urban Lunchbox, where we are able to take that and redistribute it within the community. Just for a quick couple numbers, this past year in 2020, we were able to rescue over 45,000 pounds of fruit, which is just crazy to think about. And some of our distribution centers include the Utah Food Bank, the IRC. We also have several amazing community partners like Mountain West Hard Cider, Drew Fruit Shrubs, and Pie Party. The B grade fruit that we also get from this program, so that might be imperfect, it might kind of be a weird shape, or it might have some pest damage, goes towards our Canner CSA, which is a community supported agriculture that Jen mentioned earlier. And every other week we pack a milk crate full of these B grade fruits that you can use to preserve, make jams, ferment, just anything to your heart's desire. And you receive this every other week. And we actually, I think, have a couple left in stock. If anybody is interested, I will share that with you. And besides harvesting fruit, we actually offer fruit tree services. We offer the following services to homeowners who are registered in our Fruit Share program. And this is with the understanding that they improve the health of trees, thus providing more and higher quality fruit to donate to hunger relief. So we offer fruit tree pruning, fertilizing, thinning, organic pest control, and then we also have 2 harvest options: a guaranteed harvest, which costs $100, and then just a free harvest is kind of like the luck of the draw. If you just happen to have like a perfect fruit tree that has hundreds of pounds on it, we will just harvest that for free. And then the service package includes all of these things, just minus the pest control. So it's definitely the best price, the best deal. And then what else did I want to mention? Let's see. Nope, I think. And then just right here is our harvest calendar. So you can see the different seasonality of fruit, like cherries will start to come very soon. And as you can see, apples, apricots, pears, plums, grapes, and peaches will all kind of have their little time zones here. And now kind of getting into my tips and tricks. If you're looking into planting your own fruit tree, you definitely want to choose the type of tree that is going to be the best fit for you. It's important to remember to choose fruit trees that will grow well in Utah climate, such as like native trees, like the choke cherry trees are really popular in Native American cuisine. I know they're deep, deep red or blackish purple, and they're really great in like sweet jams, and you can use them any way you might use other berries or plums for like pie fillings or liqueurs. And then there's also several non-native trees that grow really well. A couple of our most popular trees in our fruit share program are apples, plums, and apricots, but even peaches do really well here in Salt Lake. And another thing you really want to think about before you start planting trees is you want to map a landscape plan in your yard. You want to think about where you want it to be, where do you receive enough sunlight, where is maybe irrigation well in your yard, so not a lot of groundwater doesn't collect and risk of oversaturating, because watering is really important for young fruit trees. However, so is oxygen. So there is going to be such a thing as overwatering. It's important to be careful that your young trees do not dry out, especially during the first growing season. It's kind of a critical time when the root system is being rebuilt from just the shock of transplanting. So sometimes, however, homeowners do just love their young trees to death by overwatering. So just remember, during the cool spring conditions, water loss will be minimal, so you don't have to water as much. But as like the hot, dry summer conditions come, water loss both from the soil surface and through the young trees will increase. So during those hot, dry summer conditions, typically for a young tree, you're going to want to water deeply at least once a week for the first 2 growing seasons, just to keep that tree's root ball like moist and healthy. And whether you are looking to plant a tree or you have inherited one, these things are going to be just as important. Pollination and pests. For pollination, fruit trees are going to fall into these 2 categories of self-pollinating, which they don't need another tree to complete the pollination process, or they require a pollinator. So with those, you're kind of going to plant at least 2 compatible pollen varieties within 50 feet of one another. Just for some examples, most apricots, nectarines, peaches, and sour cherries are typically examples of self-pollinating trees. And then most apples, pears, plums, and sweet cherries are typically examples that require a pollinator. Notoriously, apples, almost all apple varieties require cross-pollination, meaning that 2 separate varieties are needed to produce fruit. Successful cross-pollination is just largely a function of bloom time. For apples, it's really a simple way to break it down into apple bloom time can be divided into early, mid-season, and late. And just overall, crab apples are actually great for cross-pollinating all different types of fruit trees. Let's see. And then for pests, these are kind of the 3 that we see the most often in our program. We have the codling moth, which happens with apples. It is just an insect that feeds on the inside of apples and just makes them quite unsuitable for eating. And unfortunately, codling moth can be very difficult to manage, especially if the population has been allowed to build up over a season or 2. It's much easier to keep moth numbers low from the get-go, right from the start, than to suppress a well-established population. But if you have a low population, they can be kept tolerable by using a combination of non-chemical methods. However, it's just remembered it's important to keep these measures early in the season. And then where populations are moderate to high, many infested trees are nearby, insecticides applications might be necessary to bring the populations down low. However, to be effective, the timing of this spray is critical, and several applications are necessary from when the apple tree starts blooming all the way to when you harvest, and that can be months. So that is why at the Green Urban Lunchbox, we actually do not spray apples for pests. We love our B grade fruit. Even if your tree has some codling moth or pest damage, we will still take that fruit and we will give it a second life by upcycling it into other food products like apple cider. It's delicious. And then for the Western cherry fruit fly, it's just a larva that is sometimes found. But for this one, we actually do offer pest control, and it's recommended by the USU Extension for pest control. We spray with a Monterey Garden insect spray just every 7 days until we harvest the fruit. So once the green cherry fruit turns from little green to it starts to blush a salmon color, that's when we'll begin to spray. And then finally, the blight for this usually occurs on apricots. We see it the most. And a way to manage this is there's applications of copper spray, but however, we do not spray for copper either. It's just not the most sustainable, and we just found that it doesn't really affect the taste of the fruit as much as when you're processing it. So of course, this is just kind of a shout out that the Green Urban Lunchbox loves all B grade fruit. And here's just kind of a cumulative list of our tips and tricks when it comes to fruit trees. Do's is you definitely want to prune your fruit trees when they're dormant, so in late fall or early winter. A pro tip if you have peaches is to actually wait until it's almost about springtime. Peach trees are just more sensitive to the cold than other fruit trees, so they will fare better when you prune them closer to spring. A second do is to actually thin fruit. I know it seems counterintuitive, like you waited all year and your tree is finally like producing this fruit and we're asking you to thin it, which just seems so wrong, but thinning has many benefits. It actually creates larger fruit and it stops the tree from overbearing. So sometimes you might have noticed that your tree produces a lot of fruit one year and then the next year it hardly produces anything. Thinning can really help kind of even out that cycle. Another do is to clean up fallen fruit to prevent pests from overwintering, and also to water your tree when needed. You don't need to overwater your trees. And also to know how your fruit tree pollinates, as we talked earlier. And then don'ts, again, do not overwater. Don't plant in the wrong place in your house, like next to a house fence or near power lines. And also don't harvest your fruit too early or too late. Some fruit needs to ripen on the tree and others need to actually ripen off. Like cherries need to completely ripen on the tree, whereas say Bartlett pears need to ripen off the tree. And that just avoids the pears from getting this weird mealy texture. And then that is it. If you want to be a part of our Fruit Share program, it's incredibly easy to just head to our website here, thegreenurbanlunchbox.com, and you will be able to sign up and we'll get in touch with you whenever your fruit tree comes into season to see like when the best time, how many volunteers, how long we might think it will take to harvest your fruit tree. So thank you so much for having me, and thanks to Jen for, yes, dropping that in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me now, or I can always leave my email address and you can get a hold of me that way. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions for Hannah? I've got one actually, Hannah. we planted a cherry tree last year. We didn't get any fruit the first year. We've got some coming in this year. Is it common for fruit trees to take a year or two for them to start producing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if is it a young tree?
Yeah, pretty small.
Pretty small, yeah. The age range, especially for cherries, is like to expect fruit like 2 to 5 years after. Yeah, so that definitely makes a lot of sense. It takes a little bit of time. But again, I feel like patience is something that has come up a little bit during this meeting.
Thank you. Yep, we'll be patient. Any other questions for Hannah? Well, we would appreciate you putting your email address in the chat so people can access that. And thank you, Jen, for also posting information about Green Urban Lunchbox. One thing that I found is that you might have neighbors who have a lot of fruit trees where they're not taking care of them. You know, you can, you know, introduce them to Green Urban Lunchbox. You know, you don't, just doesn't have to be for your fruit trees, but it can be for those that you see on your dog walks or around because, you know, just, you hate to see that stuff just fall on the ground and rot. So let's figure out a way we can use it. I love borrowing our neighbors' peaches and apricots and making smoothies. So it's a great way to do it during the summer. Well, thank you, Hannah, and appreciate you coming and sharing those tips.